You think you already know everything. You walk into a room and before anyone even finishes talking, you have already formed your opinion. You sit in a class and while the teacher is still speaking, your mind is somewhere else because you think you already understand. You meet someone new and within the first 30 seconds, you have already judged them completely. You try something once, it does not work, and you say to yourself, "See, I knew it would not work." And then you wonder why you are stuck. You wonder why everyone else seems to be moving forward, while you are standing in the same place you were a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. You are smart. You know you are smart. So why is nothing changing? Why does it feel like the more you know, the more trapped you become? I want you to stop for a second, because the problem might not be that you do not know enough. The problem might be that your cup is already too full. My name is Wally, and today I want to tell you a story. A story about a boy who was called foolish his entire life. A story about an old man who had nothing left to prove. And a story about the most powerful thing either of them ever learned. This story changed something deep inside me, and I genuinely believe that if you stay with me until the end, it will change something in you too. His name was Yusuf. He was 18 years old, and according to almost everyone around him, he was the village fool. Not because he was unkind, not because he was lazy. In fact, Yusuf worked harder than most boys his age. He woke up before the sun, helped his mother with the house, carried water, fixed things that were broken. He was a good boy in every way that mattered to the people who loved him. But the boys at the market did not care about that. The men sitting outside the tea shop did not care about that. To them, Yusuf was someone to laugh at. It started when he was young. He used to ask too many questions. Why does the river flow that way? Why does the sun rise in the east? Why do people get angry when they are scared? These were not the questions of a foolish boy. These were the questions of a curious one. But in a village where everyone had already decided what was true and what was not, questions were not welcome. Questions made people uncomfortable. And when people are uncomfortable, they laugh, they point, they give you a name. And the name they gave Yusuf was simple: the one who does not know anything. He tried to fight it for a while. He would study late into the night, trying to memorize facts, trying to collect knowledge like a weapon he could use to defend himself. He would walk into conversations ready to prove that he knew things, ready to show everyone that he was not foolish at all. But somehow it always made things worse. He would say something he had read, and someone older would say, "What does a boy like you know?" He would share an idea, and the men would shake their heads and smile that tired smile that adults give to children they do not take seriously. And slowly, without even realizing it, Yusuf stopped asking questions. He stopped saying what he thought. He stopped walking into rooms with openness. Instead, he started walking in with his walls up, his arms crossed, his mind already closed, because that felt safer. If you do not try, you cannot fail. If you do not share, no one can mock you. If you pretend you already know, no one can call you foolish. But here is the sad truth about that kind of armor. It protects you from being hurt, and it also protects you from being changed. One afternoon, after a particularly humiliating episode at the market, where a group of boys had mocked him in front of a crowd, Yusuf walked far out of the village, past the fields, past the old broken well, and up into the hills where almost no one went. He just wanted to be somewhere that no voice could reach him. He sat under a large tree, pulled his knees to his chest and stared at the ground. He did not hear the old man approach. "That is a good tree," the old man said, settling down nearby with the slow, careful movements of someone whose knees had many years in them. "I have been sitting under trees like this one my entire life." Yusuf looked at him. He had seen this man before, distantly, around the edges of the village. His name was Rumi, though most people just called him the Old Wanderer. He had traveled, supposedly, to many places. He had learned from many teachers. He was the kind of man that some people respected deeply, and others simply ignored, because they could not understand why a man his age still seemed to be searching for something. Yusuf said nothing. He was not in the mood for conversation, but Rumi was not bothered by silence. He sat for a while, looking at the valley below. Then he said very quietly, "You know, the saddest thing I ever saw was a young person with an old mind." Yusuf looked up. "What does that mean?" "It means," Rumi said, "a young person who has already decided everything, who has already closed the doors inside themselves, who walks through life not discovering, but confirming, not learning, but defending." Yusuf felt something uncomfortable move in his chest. "People say I do not know anything," he said. "I am trying to know more." Rumi nodded slowly. "And how do you do that? How do you try to know more?" "I read, I memorize, I study. I try to have answers ready so that, when someone challenges me, I can respond." The old man was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and picked up a small stone from the ground. He held it out toward Yusuf. "If I try to fill this stone with water," he said, "how much will it hold?" Yusuf frowned. "None. It is a stone. It cannot hold water." "And why not?" "Because it is full. It is solid. There is no space inside it." Rumi set the stone down gently. "Your mind," he said, "when you walk into a situation already knowing the answer, already defending yourself, already deciding what something means before it finishes happening, your mind is like this stone, solid, no space, nothing can enter." Yusuf stared at the stone. He wanted to argue, but something in him knew the old man was right. He just did not want to admit it. They sat together often after that day. Yusuf would come to the hills and Rumi would usually already be there, or arrive shortly after, as if the hills themselves had arranged it. And slowly, over many weeks, Rumi told him things. Not in the way a teacher lectures, not in the way someone proves a point, but in the way someone shares something they discovered the hard way, with the kind of gentleness that comes from having been wrong many times yourself. He told Yusuf about a time in his own youth when he had studied under a great teacher, a man of enormous knowledge and reputation. Rumi had arrived at that teacher's door full of confidence, full of the things he already knew, eager to be confirmed, eager to be told that he was already almost wise. And the teacher had done something strange. He had handed Rumi a cup and begun pouring tea, and he poured and poured, and the tea overflowed, spilled over the sides, ran across the table, and still the teacher poured. "Stop," young Rumi had said. "The cup is already full." And the teacher had looked at him and said, "So are you." Yusuf heard this story and felt something shift. Not a dramatic shift, not the kind of shift you see in movies where everything becomes clear in one moment, but a quiet shift, like a door that has been stuck for a long time, finally loosening just a little bit. "So what do I do?" You so fast. How do I empty the cup? And